With world-class expertise and local insight, Dexus creates value, not just for today, but long into tomorrow.
From Barangaroo Studios, the AusBiz COB is the key stuff you need to know about the day in business and finance.
Hi, welcome to the COB. I'm Nadine Blaney. It is the 24th of March. And on this Monday afternoon, let's take a quick look at markets to see how they are looking with the COB Australia Index coming to an end. We do have just slight gains on the screen, up by about 0.25%. So you can see that we had a bit of a wobble, really happening this morning when we came out of the gates. But I noted when I was on air at about 11 o'clock that US E-minis were pretty positive. And I think that might be still the case and what is helping to support this market. E-minis for the S&P 500 up by 36 points. NASDAQ E-minis up by 0.75%. Now, positive session for the local market. We've had some news in the small end of town, which we'll detail for you. Also in the very big end of town, with James Hardie really being an underperformer after announcing it would be taking over a US business. And that really sent shares spiraling. I did cover that as a stock of the day on the call, so we'll bring you analysis on that with Gaurav Sodhi from Intelligent Investor, as well as Mathan Sundaram from Deep Data Analytics. So that is the picture for the COB Australia Index. When I look across to the S&P ASX 200, it is just flat right now, 7,934. So perhaps that's a little bit of a rosy picture that's being painted there by the COB end. Now, I will tell you that in terms of sectors, we do have consumer staples weighing on the market overall. But remember on Friday, we saw a big uptick in Coles and Woolies off the back of, the ACCC, I guess, going a little bit easy on them overall. But we did have consumer discretionary as well as financials looking pretty good. The miners weighing overall. There's consumer discretionary with Wesfarmers up by 1.3%. You know what was featured on the call as well? Lovisa. So we got an updated view from Gaurav Sodhi and Mathan on Lovisa. And it stuck with me. Gaurav saying that the store rollout and I guess putting the brakes on it slightly in some parts of the world, he reckons is just good management. Anyhow, here were the miners with Fortescue looking pretty good overall. All right, let's get across some of these big stories. You can see there James Hardie absolutely trashed after announcing that M&A, which sees it taking on the AZEK, I think it is, in the US, taking on debt there. And it's an $18 billion cash and scrip deal. So pretty big. And again, my guest saying why? Like, why the strategic change that wasn't flagged to the market? Helia Group as well. We've got warning investors that its current contract with CBA may not run beyond the end of this year. MinRes, nice to see some green on the screen, reopening its Oslo Iron Haul Road after 6 truck crashed and forced it to close. And we've got the Lottery Corp up. So we do have its CEO saying that she will be retiring, but Citi saying it sees no untoward impact of that departure, saying, that it's all steady as she goes and Brickworks falls. Citi has said that the stock is trading at a discount. So I think that we're going to Josh Gilbert from eToro. Sorry, Josh, that was awkward, but you're here. I wasn't sure if you were. What do you make of the day's trade? It's just kind of a meh Monday.
Yeah, no, like you say, we sort of started off in that slightly negative slump to sort of begin the week. It is a pretty big week ahead, I guess, here in Oz, right? We've got those sort of pending tariffs potentially coming through. We have the budget, we have inflation. So a pretty big week, but, we've sort of come back from those early losses. Financials sort of leading the index a little bit higher. Most of the big banks, I think, up more than about 1% as well. So doing a fair bit of heavy lifting. Also got sort of consumer discretionary also higher today. So look, I think the overall sort of sense in the market as well is that we also had pretty strong inflows, globally last week for equities and in crypto markets as well. So a little bit more positivity, I think, maybe coming through. And we also had, some comments from Trump as well about maybe being, a little bit more flexible on tariffs. So I think there's more reasons for investors to be positive to start this week than there is negative.
All right. So when we think about this week, we had the PMI here locally, which is actually quite strong. We get PMIs now for the rest of the world, or pretty much. Do you anticipate they would be market moving, particularly in the United States, where we know that we are so, I feel like I've said this for years, but we know that we've got a Fed that's very data dependent.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, locally, I think that we'll probably sort of dial in on that inflation number that probably comes through on Wednesday. That's probably coming off the back of what was a better than expected jobs report coming last week, and that sort of has sort of lifted rate cut expectations. Now for May, we sort of moved from about a 65% chance, or almost close to about an 80% chance at the end of last week. So I think that CPI number is going to be very, very important for that potential May cut this week locally. Expected to see CPI sort of drop to about sort of 2.4%, and again, that's going to be a pretty important number. Maybe that sort of April quarterly number is probably going to be the number the market focuses on a little bit more rather than this monthly number. But I think if we do get a good number this week for monthly inflation, it will only sort of lift that expectation for that cut coming in May. And then, look, I think when we look over to the US, again, not a huge bit of sort of macro data this week. That's probably going to be market moving shape, sort of PMI sort of coming through. But I think it will probably be the tariff news that sort of really does dominate the conversation over in the US sort of this week. And I guess that comes off of the back of the Fed obviously keeping rates on hold last week, and I think probably a little bit more of a dovish Jerome Powell than many would have expected, sort of talking down those sort of inflationary pressures coming through in the short term as well. So I think those will probably be the two dominant macro focuses coming from Australia and the US this week.
So you've got to think we'll be keeping an eye on Tesla's share price. The precipitous fall has been dramatic, and we keep hearing about record numbers of Teslas being traded in. We are hearing about, more vandalism, I suppose you could call it, at Tesla sites around the world, including Canada. It really feels as if there's something shifting in terms of Tesla.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're sort of, interesting talking about Tesla. We do have BYD earnings sort of coming out, I think at some point either later today or early tomorrow morning. And I think, if you've been on the roads here in Australia, you're going to have noticed that you're going to have seen a lot more BYD vehicles coming through in the last couple of years. So they're a big challenger to Tesla sort of right now. And, it's kind of been long considered as that sort of lesser rival to Tesla, if you like. And as you say, that sort of growing negative sentiment around Tesla, I think is probably, laying that groundwork for BYD to sort of come in and steal a bit of market share. They sort of came through with a bit of a breakthrough moment last week, sort of talking about its sort of, I think it's Super E platform it's called, and that was looking at actually cutting charging speeds, completely, and ultimately I think it would sort of charge EVs twice as fast as Tesla superchargers. And that's a massive hurdle for this industry, but particularly here in Australia. We're talking about range. That's obviously the first one, and then clearly charging times. You don't want to be sat at, a sort of a charging station all day, waiting for your sort of vehicle to sort of charge up. So I think that's really, really important. Obviously, US tariffs for BYD are going to be sort of really, really important, but they sold about 300,000 vehicles in February. That's up about 160% from a year earlier. So massive numbers that they're delivering right now. And again, I think they're going to be sort of really looking to sort of jump on the back of any failures of what's happening with Tesla. I think from the Tesla perspective, I think we're obviously seeing Elon Musk take his eye off the ball a little bit at the moment. So I think investors are really going to sort of want to see him sort of dial back in, try and focus it, a little bit more, maybe get off X for 5 minutes. That might help as well. And I think that's probably something that investors are looking for, right? He is the heart and soul of that business. He is Tesla ultimately. So I think they want him to dial back in at a time when they do really need him. Yeah, well, we'll see. He's quite busy. Now, let's talk about earnings season in the US, because we have had some of those early reads coming through, the likes of FedEx, some really, again, warning about a slowdown in the US economy. Also, Nike, that was better than expected in terms of revenue, but we're sort of not in the thick of it yet. How important, it's always important, but we're really going to be parsing these statements for any signs of an impact from tariffs and Trump and the like. Yeah, look, it's going to be a big earnings season coming up, right? You're absolutely bang on there. I think, the FedEx numbers were a little bit weaker. We had, sort of Nike Nike's numbers coming through slightly better than expected. Market sort of didn't like some of the commentary moving forward in terms of talking about sort of margins maybe set to decline, inventory still, not shifting in the way that they would like, and ultimately that's going to come back to sort of discounting, and that's going to affect sort of margins, and revenue growth was coming in and sort of lower sort of single digits. So there's still a lot of work to do there for Nike. Obviously, you've got a new CEO sort of coming in, or who's been there for a while now, but that's going to probably be a bit of a marathon and not a sprint there for Nike. And I think more so when we're looking to that broader earnings season, it's going to be a pretty important one, right? I think especially we'll be looking towards those sort of Mag 7 names. We want to look towards those sort of AI leaders to sort of really try and deliver to sort of lift this market a little bit and give us some positivity. Because as you say, that sort of tariff concerns are going to be front of mind, and it will sort of be that usual sort of thing where we view how many times the word tariffs is mentioned in earnings calls, and that will sort of be sort of very well looked at. But I think that's going to be a good look at sort of economic indicators, what companies are saying, how they're going to have the effect on them, inflationary, and how ultimately I think the key thing here is how they impact profit margins. That's going to be sort of pretty important. And I think also over the next week, in terms of just staying on AI and sort of looking at that, also got sort of the IPO through the CoreWeave. That's going to be a sort of a really, really big IPO to sort of keep an eye on, because it's expected to debut this week. But I think for me, that's going to give us a really nice insight into the sort of AI trade right now, how investors are sort of seeing that. I think that'll be a great barometer for that. Well, work very closely with NVIDIA, backed by NVIDIA, just did a huge deal with OpenAI as well. So I think that will give us a really, really great read on AI demand and how the market's seeing it ahead of what is going to be pretty important.
Yeah, noted. All right, Josh, nice to see you as usual. I hope you have a great trading week.
Thanks, Nadine. Same to you.
Take care. All right, so let's get the detail on James Hardie, Gaurav Sodhi, InvestSmart, and Nathan Samasundaram from Deep Data Analytics.
This deal is baffling because it is a complete departure of 15 years of solid strategy. And it came out of nowhere. Management has not articulated a new strategy. They've not hinted at anything changing from the current trajectory. We wake up this morning and there's a huge acquisition, diluting existing shareholders with a business neither of us can pronounce, with an undefined strategy. This is a sell. I have no idea what the CEO and the board are thinking on this, but every red flag you can tick off has been raised with this move.
It is a tough play. So it is a tough sector, and it's done really well. So we've been telling people to get out of James Hardie for months. And so I'm not surprised. This actually sends, and I'm agreeing with Gaurav here, there's a lot of red flags, right? You're on a weak cycle, you're doing big acquisition, housing cycle, we're at peak. There's a property bubble everywhere, right? Even countries that don't care about property have a property bubble. So it's not a surprise. And this is, it's definitely going to be tricky.
So that was James Hardie. You can listen to their full analysis either by listening or watching the call, which is available online at ausbiz.com.au. Or we also really isolate those stock of the day in their entirety, and you can find that on the website as well. Let's get to some of these market leaders. Mineral Resources, we touched upon this one. It's got that Onslow Road up and running again, up by 6.6%. The guys on the call mentioned MinRes as well. You're going to have to listen to it right to the end, actually, to hear what they had to say about that one. Gold Road, Telix, Mesoblast, Promedicus. Promedicus was also featured on the call today, up by 3.2%, $230.73. So those that did not have a good day today, by percentage terms, Helia, if it loses that CBA contract, it says that it will be able to grow organically, but that would be a big hole. The end of the CBA contract likely increasing the scope for capital management as well. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. Bellevue Gold down by close to 11%. And we're looking at Clarity Pharmaceuticals, another company that's been really volatile as of late. And Life 360, I don't see any news, but just soured sentiment down by 3.7% to $20.64. In the smaller end of the market, what can I tell you here? Novonix up by close to 9%, moving forward in terms of bringing to life that production facility in the United States. One of the losers, though, if I can isolate one from the flip side, is Soraya Resources, off by 11%, in Cyclopharm. Decider AI Industries, that's an interesting one, isn't it? That was renamed from Live Verdure. Yeah, I've noticed that they've been advertising in our lifts here at Barangaroo. So I've put a call into the company and really would like a chance to speak with them in the future. We'll do that as soon as we can with them. All right, let's get to what's on overnight. So we get global PMIs, expecting services PMI to fall, even potentially into contractionary territory. So from 51 to 49.5 globally. Evidence of a slowdown. Tomorrow here, the big one is the budget, of course, 7:30. I know what I'll be doing. CBA is expecting $22.5 billion worth of deficit. And the Future Made in Australia program is also, we're told, going to be put front and center. Capital Brief, it's a publication that I subscribe to. I'm always willing to pay for quality media and quality coverage, but yeah, reading an interview with Katie Gallagher in there today, just talking about putting the Future Made in Australia program front and center, not just what it was originally designed for, was that equivalent to the inflation bill in the United States, you know, putting money towards cleaner, greener future, new technologies, not only in mining, but also in energy. And yeah, the government's saying that that's also a way that they can level the playing fields, or at least, yeah, counter some of the Trump tariff impact, as well as they're going to back it up apparently with a Buy in Australia program. And I will say, this is not groundbreaking news, but I've always bought Heinz mustard, and it's made in America, and I've just switched to Master Foods. Made in Australia, don't know if it's quite to my taste, but doing my little bit. All right, here we go. There's this SIBO Australia index. I think my producer Marius is starting to tell me to wrap it up. I'm getting a bit silly on this Monday afternoon, but we do have the S&P AZEK 200 finishing higher by about 0.1%, 7,936. E-minis still looking good, and yeah, we're watching gold edging higher on safe haven demand and optimism about the Fed. Other than that, we're motoring toward the European Open. We've got a US delegation aiming for a Black Sea ceasefire in Ukraine-Russia talks. So again, we'll keep a wary eye on Europe as well. That's it for today. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. We're live from 9:45.